While the First Descendant doesn't have a ton of systems, it has some central pillars around which the entire game is designed, and we think that's worth breaking down. What's up, friends? My name is Livid, and welcome back to Legacy Gaming. Today we're sharing everything that you need to know about the First Descendant's rune system. With the Steam beta dropping on October 20th and a full release set for sometime in 2023, we were invited to an early preview of the content that you'll be experiencing soon. Now keep in mind, this entire game is still a work in progress, but the core systems are unlikely to change. Now that being said, we each put in almost 40 hours to explore each and every character, rune, and more, so we could bring you the most comprehensive guide out there on the rune system, as we do with pretty much every game we cover. If you do want to hear our overall impressions of the game, be sure to check out that video linked below. In the First Descendant, you'll acquire new weapons, new gear, and even new descendants, but nothing is more integral than runes for your character's progression. It's such an integral system that nearly everything within the game ties back into this one singular system. Runes are how you bring your descendant's power fully online. They're how you get your weapons to hit the absolute hardest or bring utility to the table. They even influence your survival. Now, a character like Livid, for instance, one of the 3 starting descendants that you can choose from, is extremely mana hungry when starting out, and something like his arm cannon ability is lucky to get 3 shots off before you run out of that precious resource. Through creative rune compositions and solving for descendants' core weaknesses, you can turn Livid's arm cannon into an ability that you can keep up almost infinitely, and that's just one path that you can take with just this one character. Now, runes enable a whole diverse range of playstyles, from dot builds using spreader runes, to cast builds by leaning into skill attack and mana siphoning. Now there is definitely a lot of potential here, and way more room that the team can expand the system to add even crazier runes in the future. With that out of the way, let's dive into the systems. Enhancing runes is the primary method of increasing everything's power. The rarer the rune, the more expensive it costs to upgrade. The more common, the cheaper it is. As a note, you can only upgrade your runes up to your current mastery level in-game. Sometimes these runes have a mastery level cap. Other times, they can seemingly be upgraded much further. Now, in order to upgrade these runes, you'll be spending a ton of gold, the primary in-game currency you get from missions, activities, and dismantling junk gear. Now, the other major resource you need is Capacity, a resource obtained from dismantling duplicate runes or runes that you don't plan on using. Now, at the top right of every rune, you'll see a number that represents its capacity cost, and this determines how many runes of varying cost and power levels can be equipped on a rune slot. Sometimes you'll even see some that have specific rune symbols. We'll talk about this in a bit, but if you slot a rune with a symbol to a matching slot with that same symbol, it cuts the cost in half. If you mismatch rune symbols, well, it increases it. If we look at the different kinds of runes when upgraded, gold runes generally reduce in cost and don't change stats in most cases, as they usually have very specific benefits that can sometimes be worth their cost. Purple runes are likely the most common ones that you'll use, and they generally increase in cost and increase in positive and negative stat with each enhancement. Finally, blue runes increase in cost and provide a single focused bonus. Now do not sleep on blue runes just because their rarity is lower. These can sometimes be exactly what your build needs and can solve some major issues like ability cost reduction or just flat damage. As I mentioned just a bit ago, dismantling duplicate or unused runes is how you obtain Capacity for rune upgrades. Now, in our hands-on with the game, these upgrades can get extremely expensive, often in the tens of thousands of this resource, sometimes even much more. Blue runes will dismantle for a measly 100 Capacity. Purple runes will reward you with 500, and gold runes net you a hefty 1000 Capacity. Now, when you're going about looking to dismantle runes, I highly recommend that you filter your rune pages by quantity, as it will let you see just how many duplicates that you have, and it helps to avoid dismantling ones that you need or are currently upgraded and in use. Combining runes is another feature that you can explore, and it's honestly super straightforward. You slap 4 runes that you don't need into their slots, combine them together, and you get a new rune or set of runes as a reward. Now, this system can cost a hefty amount of gold, and the results you get are not only entirely random, but they can even give you a handful of the same rare rune for trading in epic runes. In its current state, I personally don't think that this system is worth experimenting with unless you're desperate for some runes that you don't have, and is more or less a gold sink later in the game's life, if you can even call it that. We just wanted to make sure and highlight this so you're aware. Of course, things could change from now until launch, so keep that in the back of your mind. Alright, now we're going to get into the next super important system in relation to enhancing runes, applying rune socket types. Now this system ensures that you can equip the highest possible cost runes and stay within or below your maximum rune capacity. To engage with this system, you need Arch Crystals, which can be obtained from either Deslin, the weapon vendor for 100 caliber, the premium currency in the game, or by leveling a Descendant to level 40. You'll need to also obtain a crystallization catalyst through either crafting and research, or as a potential drop from high tier amorphous materials that are linked when fighting a Colossus. Now having both of these conditions met, you'll head to the Ageless Reach, where you normally increase your mastery level, and you'll reset your Descendant back to level 1, extracting an Arch Crystal in the process. Now don't worry though, it's merely consuming your XP essentially, and will leave you with all your unlocks and your abilities unlocked. You just need to grind out that XP again if you want to repeat the process. I don't think that's a great system, but it is what it is. Now, when you're looking at the Rune Socketing interface, each time you socket a rune, it'll cost you 1 Arch Crystal. Now when socketing, because these crystals can be quite time consuming to acquire, you need to be sure which rune you are looking to decrease the overall cost of. The symbols at the top right of the rune denote its socket type, and unfortunately, not all runes have a socket type. Once you've determined what socket type you need, simply head into the respective rune type menu, such as Storm or Wave, and select the socket slot that you want to change. Select one of the socket symbols on the bottom right, and you'll hit Apply Socket Type. Now here you'll get a warning prompt, saying that you can apply the newly assigned socket color immediately, or keep the current socket color. Now this is basically a confirmation screen. If you press Keep, it won't change the rune socket, but for some reason, it'll still consume your Arch Crystal, so do not make that mistake. Pressing Change will socket the rune type correctly. If you had a rune in that slot before, and the rune didn't match the newly assigned type, the cost of that rune will increase and may exceed socket capacity, resulting in it being forced unequipped. If the socket instead matches the rune, the overall cost of the rune will instead be cut in half. Now if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, simply unequip and re-equip the rune to make the effect take place. The last important part of the rune system that we need to talk about is Rune Capacity, as it influences just how many runes you can equip, directly equating to their potency. So one way that you can obtain more capacity is by improving your overall mastery level, where you'll get passive increases to Rune Capacity among other things. The other major way to do so is at the Rune Vendor. Here you can directly increase the capacity of both weapon runes and your Descendant rune, and to do so, you'll need to obtain energy activators. Now these function basically like Arch Crystals, but for the capacity system, and you'll need 1 per upgrade. Now I'll be honest, we weren't entirely sure where to obtain these energy activators. However, we did reach out to the developers once again and found out they can be obtained through both the consecutive survival and consecutive defense world missions. Weapon runes can be increased by 40 capacity in total, while the Descendant rune can be increased by 30. Each upgrade has diminishing returns. For example, for weapon runes, the first increase adds 10 capacity. Each upgrade after that, up to a maximum of 5 total upgrades, gives you 1 less capacity each time. Because of this, your first capacity increase on each rune is by far your most valuable, and the biggest bang for your buck when starting out. I think it's also important to note that weapon rune upgrades are global across all Descendants that you own, which makes them even more valuable to invest in first. Descendant runes, on the other hand, are per Descendant, so they should only be upgraded if you plan on investing in that character long term. So, there you have it. Everything that you need to know about runes in the First Descendant. I know I've said it a few times, but just remember, things will most likely change between now and the release, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any news regarding the game. As I mentioned, we had 3 full days to check out the game ahead of the beta period, so expect a few more in-depth videos from the channel in the coming days. I also want to let you know that our 2022 Leave a Legacy charity event is right around the corner on Saturday, October 22nd. For a second year in a row, we've partnered with Connecticut Children's to help bring the joy of video games to kids at the hospital. Mark your calendars and be sure to join our charity stream as we raise money and give away thousands of dollars in free games, prizes, and more. My name is Livid, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on!